Cartoons are well known for their extreme antics. Think of Bart Simpson sawing the head off the statue of the town's founder in a daring act of vandalism, or the brutal pranks pulled in the ceaseless chase between Tom and Jerry. Let's face it, the crazier, the better. But did you know that even the creators of Beavis and Butthead, a show famed for its, let's say, extreme nature, had some episodes that went just a little too far? Join me now for another episode of Rerun Zone as we venture into the 5 Beavis and Butthead episodes that were just too hot to handle, in order of least offensive to most offensive. Number 5, Home Improvement. At number 5, we have Home Improvement. Now this one takes the bottom spot on our list, not because it's innocent, but let's just say it's the lesser of 5 evils. Sure, the duo goes on a vandalism spree, and Beavis showcases a disturbing fascination for fire, but compared to the other episodes, their destructive symphony is more of a wild rock and roll party gone too far than a descent into outright criminality. This was the episode where the boys embraced their inner artist, and we use that term loosely. This episode, which witnessed its censoring scissors shortly after its original air date, took us on a creative spree with the duo as they went on a graffiti rampage, set fire to a shrub, and huffed paint thinner fumes. Because, inhaling toxic substances is their idea of a fun Saturday afternoon. Scenes that had them turning a garden into a literal flaming disaster and an explicit graffiti escapade were quickly yanked off to avoid influencing any real-world Beavis and Butthead copycats, which I guess is a testament to the sheer power of this show held over its fan base. The censored moments include the explicit depiction of the boys adoring the flames, with Beavis being overly fascinated by fire, an element that later faced serious repercussions in the real world, which we'll get to shortly. Number 4, Comedians. Taking the 4th spot, we have Comedians. Now, this episode does have a darker cloud hovering over it, given the tragic real-world implications linked to it. Yet it holds this spot because, within the realm of the show, their fiery antics during a stand-up comedy act, albeit dangerous, were not quite as heartless or morally bankrupt as the escapades in the higher-ranking episodes. This episode saw them putting on a stand-up comedy show that involved, wait for it, juggling with fire. This representation was seen as not only dangerously playful, but directly encouraging harmful actions. As fun as it seemed to them, it had dire consequences, and the episode faced backlash after a young viewer set a fire in real life after watching the show. This incident took a grim turn when the fire that the youth started tragically claimed the life of his younger sister. His mother claims that his actions were influenced by a scene from this episode. Realizing the hazardous impact, the creators removed scenes encouraging pyromania, including Beavis juggling burning newspapers, forever altering its content to prevent further influence on impressionable minds. This episode has since remained shelved, leaving a deep imprint on the conscious efforts taken by networks in monitoring the kind of content aired, keeping in mind the impressionable young minds tuning in. Despite the dark history associated with it, the Comedians episode remains a significant part of the Beavis and Butthead legacy, a reflection of a time of unrestrained humor that also bore witness to the gravity of its influence. Number 3, Stewart's House. Right in the middle, we have Stewart's House. In this roller coaster of hazardous choices, the boys find themselves sniffing stove gas and eventually blow up poor Stewart's kitchen. Yeah, it was an episode bursting quite literally with life-threatening antics that had us clutching our seats. Yet while their actions were dangerously irresponsible and could easily have resulted in grave injuries, they were still a notch below the outright criminality and offensive stereotyping depicted in our top 2 contenders. Stewart's House begins with Beavis and Butthead hanging out at Stewart's place, but being themselves, can't stick to the simple plan of a calm evening. Here, they partook in hazardous shenanigans, such as sniffing stove gas, which, honestly, was a disaster waiting to happen. And happen it did, as they eventually escalated to literally blowing up Stewart's kitchen. After the Ohio incident mentioned earlier, This banned episode became one of the rarest ones to view legally. MTV, standing at a moral crossroads, decided to pull this episode from the rotation to ensure no other innocent lives would be influenced to partake in such hazardous antics inspired by the show. The fear was real. The consequences had proven to be fatal, and nobody wanted a repeat of such a tragedy. Number 2. Way Down Mexico Way. Now we are entering the zone of extreme content with Way Down Mexico Way. Hold on to your seats because this one doesn't just cross boundaries, but sprints over them without a backward glance. The episode is a carnival of bad choices, showcasing the duo in a whirlpool of stereotypes that are not just offensive, but dip their toes well into racism. Add to this their involvement in drug smuggling, which goes beyond the pale, and you have an episode that's a masterclass in bad taste, depicting actions that could lead to serious jail time. Released in 1993 in an era sensitive to racial portrayals, this episode exhibits stereotypes that bordered on offensive. The depiction of locals and the surroundings all echoed a narrative that was steeped in prejudice, and for many, it hit too close to home. It was a one-way ticket to controversy, with scenes of them aiding a drug smuggler, involving, brace yourself, swallowing condoms filled with pills. Talk about a gut-wrenching plotline, right? It took inappropriate to a whole new level, creating a cocktail of racial stereotypes and explicit drug references that felt like a punch in the gut. Yet this was Beavis and Butthead uncensored and unhinged, a wild ride. It's no surprise it earned a quick ban, but you gotta admit it did push boundaries in the most Beavis and Butthead way imaginable. Number 1. Heroes. Topping our list is none other than the Heroes episode. This one doesn't just cross the line, it obliterates it. Picture this: Beavis and Butthead find themselves with guns in their hands, and what follows is a series of events that are not just illegal, but horrifyingly cruel. Heroes got the ban hammer due to the downright disturbing narrative that showcased the pair indulging in some extremely illegal gun use. Yeah, underage and guns, what could possibly go wrong? Things spiraled quickly out of control, as they always do with this duo, resulting in them accidentally shooting down a passenger jet. The boys then attend the site of the plane crash and, instead of helping, taunt the terrified passenger stuck inside, even after hearing that there are 2 pregnant women on board. Can you see where this is going yet? It's dark, it's morbid, and it showcases Beavis and Butthead at their most heartless, throwing all empathy out of the window. To top it off, the boys escaped without punishment, as they were unable to be identified from the police sketches. Yikes! Talk about no consequences. This episode left viewers with their jaws on the floor and quickly found itself on the banned list, leaving a trail of controversy in its wake. Now, as we close this chapter of cartoon history, we can't help but wonder, did these episodes really deserve the ban hammer, or were they just pushing the limits of cartoon madness? Hey, it is Beavis and Butthead after all. Dive into the comments and let us know your thoughts down below, and keep an eye out for more controversial trips down memory lane. This is Rich from Rerun Zone, signing off.